guys, here to review issue 3 of Spearhead. I hope you guys enjoyed the last two. These are probably only going to get released, at least the first three, at the same time, because I'm working on my intro and my things like that as I get back into this. But issue 3's come out. I'm a little later than I thought I was getting into it, but that's mostly because I wanted to see if my son Max wanted to get into it with me, because that's kind of the important part of it for me. But as I'm also, as I said, doing these reviews to A, help you guys out, and B, to help me maintain enthusiasm, which in my old age is something I have trouble doing. Some days I just want to sleep. But we are now looking at Spearhead. Oops, I was just turning on my computer because it has some prices on it. Or it did have some prices on it before it shut itself down and lost those prices. Never mind. But we're looking at Spearhead issue 3. As always, I'm going to open it up for you guys, and we're going to start with the most important bit. The bases. We have 5 rather large bases, which means we've got 5 models. Okay, and let's go for Sigma. We'll look up the price on these ones. These are Age of Sigma. Copyright 2024, so these are newer models, which I thought they were because they look, I remember when the original ones came out, these guys look a lot taller and a lot thinner. Well, a lot better proportioned, I think would be more accurate to say. So I'm just trying to get the price for these guys up so I can give you more accurate pricing. Last time I kind of guesstimated it. These guys are, no, they're not the Vanguard Hunters. They are the Liberators. And the Liberators are on Games Workshop's website at the moment for £38. I paid £9 for these. The box set you buy is 10. There are obviously, as we counted from the bases, 5 here. So if you get another squad of these later, which you may well do, you're looking at £19.98 versus £38. So you are looking at about half price on these boys, which if you want to get a couple of copies of this magazine, in the hopes that you can bulk out your Age of Sigmar army with Stormcast, if those are the guys that interest you, then do that. I like the Stormcasts. I like the models a little bit more macho than I'm looking at the moment. But they are fantastic models. Oh, look at that. You've got some beautiful, I'm just going to put that my hand there so you get better. You've got some beautiful detail there. The face masks are pretty good. The naked head is pretty good. The shields have the Sigmarite detail, which is the bearded guy. Yeah, as I say, these are the Liberators. They're basically the core troops of the models. This is a 2024 copyright on this set, so it was only 2 years old, which means that we're unlikely to get anything updated in the near future, which means these are going to be your go-to models for Liberators at this time, which is good. It's a little bit, it can be a little bit annoying to get a model and then have another version of that model come out shortly afterwards, which, so I'm just going to lower this screen a tad, and get an updated version of that model, which looks a lot better, and you've got the old version. Let's have a look in the magazine. We've got this beautiful big picture of a Liberator on the front with a broken shield. I recognise this picture as one of the older pictures. You notice his shield has less detail on it. His hammer is a little more blunt looking, well, a little less detailed when compared to the models. Their shields have more detail, are prettier, and are generally better. That is a picture of, I think, a first edition Age of Sigmar Liberator. And there's nothing wrong with that. We've got a contents page, vitally important, and then it goes straight into the Stormcast Eternals. The Stormcast Eternals are the immortal sons and daughters of the God King Sigmar. Each one was plucked from a heroic death to be transformed into a champion of Azir, and each time they fall in his service, they are reforged anew. As they fight across the mortal realms, so too do they strive to hold on to their own humanity. The basic gist behind that is Sigmar's well into recycling. He grabs their soul, something which angers Nagash a lot, because Nagash thinks he is owed their soul, the souls of all the dead, being the god of the dead. But being as he made himself the god of the dead, that's a bit iffy. It's like, he's the god of the dead because he said so, and he ate the other god of the dead. Therefore, he's owed everything that the god of the dead is owed by some kind of right. I guess divine right, being as he's made himself divine. But that's all a bit questionable, really. But what Sigmar does is, if you're particularly cool and particularly heroic, he grabs your soul, jams it in this golden suit of, makes you into a sort of Captain America super soldier in the Age of Sigmar, jams you in a golden suit of armour and sends you out to fight his battles. And when you die, he does it again and again and again, allowing him to almost infinitely grow his army, but not quite. Because one thing it does say is that every time he grabs your soul, he doesn't get quite all of it. A bit of it does go to Nagash. So you lose memories, you lose spiritualism, you lose bits and pieces. And by the end, you're an automaton that remembers how to fight. Everything that makes you human's kind of gone on to the next life. Well, not even to the next life, gone on to be food for the realm of the dead. Meaning that his armies do slowly cycle. The armies of Sigmar do slowly cycle down. In a normal world, that wouldn't be much of a problem because you'd be growing them much more than you'd be losing them. Being as these are the armies of a god king in a universe that is pretty much constantly at war, it is a bit of an issue because these guys are constantly fighting, they're constantly dying, and they're constantly being inefficiently recycled. So his armies do die and do need constantly replenishing. It's been established that not all the Sigmars are human, despite it goes on about them losing their humanity. Sigmar reserves the right to nick any souls he wants. It then tells you about the Stormcasts. It goes over the price of immortality, which is what I've just gone over. It tells you about how they fight. And we've got the Storm's Eye, which is where they get reforged. The Bastions of the Storm, which are their fortress. And then, much went on about the Skaven realm last time. It goes on about Azir this time, which is the realm of the heavens, and Sigmar's realm. Just had this fall out again. They are definitely trying to get us to buy this. And it's not a bad deal. This is just the order it directly from them, reserve it, get extra stuff, give them extra money. But anyway, it goes about the realm of Azir and what it is. Got some beautiful paint jobs there, so we can see that. I'm going to turn that way because I'm doing this in the daylight because it's better light. We've got the how to build the Liberators. I'm going to build them later along with the Rat Ogres I got last week, and that way me and my boy can play with them. It's got the alternate builds there. It is worth deciding what you want to build them as. The alternate builds are cool. I always tend to avoid putting flesh tone heads on things because it just saves time if they're all one colour. You can spray paint these boys gold, or you can slap gold. You can slap chop them and put gold all over them, and they'll be done very quickly and very effectively. which is how they were designed. They were designed to be like Space Marines in 40k, the poster boys. They were designed to get younger kids in, more inexperienced model builders and players in, so they could build them, bang them together, paint them, and have an army that looks reasonably good on a tabletop for minimal effort with minimal skill. If you have got experience and you have got skill, these guys are a huge canvas. You can do a hell of a lot of really good work on them. But if you haven't, or like me, you just don't have the energy to go around and paint models in incredible detail, then you can do them pretty easily and pretty quickly. Part of the reason for that is I come from the era when they upped the size of 40k and they upped the size of fantasy, and their main thing seemed to be to get people to collect the hugest armies possible. It's a habit that once you get into, you don't want to get out of, because having hundreds of art models is really cool, but then it takes forever to build, and your pile of grey shame takes even longer to paint. We've got another breakdown here of how to paint. I haven't got any paints yet, so that's a bit odd, but I suppose it's trying to get you to buy stuff from the shop. So get water, get paint, get a palette, get brushes, get a paper towel. Paper towel, Jesus. I don't think I've used a paper towel since I was in school. I'm not going to say how long ago that was. It makes the Stormcast Eternal seem young. Then it's got, oh, this is quite nice actually. It's got a description and breakdown of the brushes, which, particularly if you're new to modelling, is pretty good, because there is particularly if you're new modelling, and especially amongst the third party, a dazzling array of brushes. And one thing I will say is 90% of those brushes are down to personal choice. You'll see things like Army Painter and Vallejo do their own brushes. You'll see a bunch of cheap brushes that are in places like Hobbycraft or The Works, all of which are perfectly good for different purposes, but it can be difficult to judge which ones. If you're wondering what the cheap brushes are good for, base coating large armies. You get a big brush, it will base coat a large army, but then often be knackered. But because it only costs, because you got a pack of 5 for £5 or £6 or whatever, you don't feel particularly bad just throwing it away, as opposed to if you spend good money on a brush, like a Winsor Newton, you don't want to use it for a ton of cheap models, because it is an expensive brush, it is a good brush, and you want to preserve it for using in nice models. So my tendency tends to be for base coating and undercoating and slap chopping to buy a bunch of cheap brushes, and then move to the next level up, like GW's own brushes, or say Army Painter brushes, are reasonably good for their price. If I ever forget to say that about Army Painter or about any of the modelling companies owned, like Vallejo or another one, most of their brushes are good for their price range. There are professional artist quality brushes out there. I mentioned Winsor Newton are one, that are amazing, but they're also 10 to 20 to 30 to, they can get up into hundreds of pounds for a single brush. Short of doing Golden Demon stuff, I can't imagine you ever needing one of those. I did buy a £30 detail brush once. It was amazing. It kept going for ages, and it was the best brush I ever had. It wasn't really worth the price for what I was doing with it. Buying an £8 or £9 brush is probably the most you want to go for this. And knowing which brushes you need, what their brushes are, and how they work. They've got shading brushes. You've got your starter brush, which I'm assuming you'll get at a later point. You've got your shading brushes and your layer brushes, which are basically your workhorses. You've got your large and small dry brushes. Again, I often do large batches at once. As such, I will often have a bunch of cheap brushes for dry brushing, under the understanding that I'm going to burn through them when I've done about 3 3 or 4 units, and I'm not doing good work, I'm doing quick work to get it done and to get it out of the way. But yeah, if you're new to this, try shit out, try the cheap ones out, try the expensive ones out, see if it's worth the money to you, because cost of living is going up again, and there are a lot of ways of cutting costs. I may do that. I may do a video on that at some point. I'm not sure what the legality of me recommending specific manufacturers is. Yeah, everyone I've given so far is just an example, not someone I would say go out and buy. And anything that I say I like. I like Army Painter. Doesn't mean you'll like Army Painter, doesn't mean they're good, doesn't mean I'm guaranteeing their quality, just means I like them. You know, for me, they are a good quality versus cost point. You know, their price versus how good they are, for me is great. I'm a good painter. I'm not the world's greatest painter. I don't think up to pro quality. Not too far off, I don't think, because I am vain as fuck. But that's what it is. GW brushes are slightly better and they're slightly more expensive. I don't like them as much, not because they're worse brushes, but because for me the price point isn't quite worth it. For me, just my opinion, and it's my opinion based on my experience, how I paint, how good or bad I am, how much effort I want to put into maintaining my brushes. So there's a lot of factors in there that make something great for me that might make it just not great for you. So anything I say is just my opinion, and it's the opinion of an idiot at that. Next, we've got unit weapons and rend. So we've got another set of the rules to build on the ones we've learned last week and the week before. I'm not going to go through the rules because I'm pretty sure that's proprietary, but it explains how the rules work, how to pick weapons in units and things like that. Then it goes and explains the rend special rule, which is a nice special rule if you've got it on your models. Next we have, they've got a couple of small example battles, and then a nice battle for you to fight. This one is what we pretty much expected. You've got the rat ogres versus your liberators. Just those guys. I'm just going to point out this quickly. I'm getting an edition quality issue again with the magazine. It's hardly the end of the world. It's not going to stop me putting it into a ring binder, but I have damaged every page slightly this time around, which I know for some of you is going to be a big thing, because some of you, when you buy something, you want to keep it pristine, you want to keep it perfect. I'm not sure what you do about that, but it is a print quality issue, just not a very big one in my opinion, because I don't care. But again, you've got your Stormcast turn, you've got your Skaven turn, examples of what you might roll and how to do it. I like that they include that, because I've seen some janky dice rollers. I have a friend called Matt who rolls the worst dice ever, and if you're standing with about 1.5 meters of him, you'll roll terrible dice as well. And when I say 1.5 meters, I mean 1 meter and 54 centimeters is what we worked it out as, and that's pretty precise. We exactly measured when our dice rolls went janky. He has like literally an aura of bad luck. And he's an ardent player of 40k, so yeah, he has to tolerate this and try and build armies around the fact that he's going to roll for shit no matter what he does. Me and a bunch of friends, for a friend's birthday, Christ, about 17 years ago now, I did a massive apocalypse battle, something like 20 to 30,000 points aside. It was huge. And we literally had to get him to go and stand in the corner at the other end of the room while we rolled dice, because otherwise we just died too quickly. And it was meant to be fun for my other friend, who is also called Matt's birthday. But he likes winning, so I don't think he minded either way. But yeah, it's nice to have an example of what should happen, just in case it doesn't. As I said, me and Max had played the first game out of the first magazine, and the Stormcast champion won every time. That might not be your experience, and that might not be what happens statistically. That's just what happened with us. So knowing that you can go the other way and have an example of how it probably should work and probably will work most of the time is useful. And here we've got what happens in the event of Skaven victory, what happens in the event of a Stormcast victory, which is just a little blurb to give you some story idea. And it's one of the things I do like about and have liked about Age of Sigmar since the beginning. It tries to be story and fun based, not rules based. If you want something that's rules based, Games Workshop do a lot of other systems, some with incredibly janky rules like Necromunda, some with some heavy balance issues like Blood Bowl. And it's worth noting that with those balance issues, any local Blood Bowl club will usually have a tier system to help counter those balance issues, because Blood Bowl has had a life separate of Games Workshop ever since GW stopped doing it back in the 80s or 90s, back in the 90s, and then he started doing it recently. But it has such a life of its own that it kept going regardless. I'm not sure how well the current set of rules and how well balanced the current set of rules are for Age of Sigmar, but again, you can repeatedly see that Games Workshop's focus isn't on making a great set of rules, it's on trying to make something that's fun and enjoyable, and appeals to a larger, perhaps younger audience, perhaps well, I'd say younger and an older audience. It appeals to the younger audience who doesn't have the time and ability to get too heavily into calculating systems, and to the older audience who've been through that mode of spending hours math hammering everything to get the perfect list, only to have a blow up on your face, and play tournaments, competitions. Now, people like me are just looking at doing stuff like that. Bear me a second. No. Right then. Give me a second, Dad. I'm in the middle of something. That's my dad knocking on the door. On the banisters. Okay. Two little ones. Give me a second. I just got to pause. Right. So I do like that about Age of Sigmar. It's stuff. I'm currently living in the same house as my 70-year-old parents. That's what happens when your marriage breaks down and you divorce your wife. Don't do it, boys. It's not worth it. Trust me, whatever you've got, it's worth fighting for. Although in my case, the breakdown of my marriage was actually a good thing. But for both me and my wife, it had reached its natural conclusion, and we're both happier now. Next, we've got that last page telling me what's going to be in issue 4. Now, in issue 4, like I said, we have got paints and we've got a starter brush. So you can start getting paint in your army. You're going to get Abaddon Black Retributor armor and a paint and a starter brush. I do not know what the cost of the starter brushes are because they tend to do different brushes. I'm going to look it up on the interwebs. Behold my face going slightly wonky. Right, they don't do the starter brushes separately. They're all part of the paint sets. Oh, well. So there's no real way of knowing that. All right, so things like your layer brushes for small are $6.75, for medium are $7.75. The starter brushes have plastic bendy handles, so I would have estimated them being maybe a $5. And you're getting 2 paints. I believe their paints are about £3 currently, but I'm just going to check. It's a spray can. There we go. $4.75. Their paints are about £5 each. So if you add that together, next week's looking to be about £15-ish worth of stuff. Again for $9.99. That's another issue that's saving you money. If you're painting Stormcast Eternals, definitely worth looking at getting a couple of copies of issue 4, because you will go through a lot of Retributor armor, and you will go through a lot of Abaddon Black. So at £4.75 each, you're talking £8.50. No, £8. You're talking £9.50. So for £9.99, you're paying 50p for a brush. That's not a terrible price, but that's again if you think it's worth it. One thing about this one is where it's the Spearhead armies, and the army is going to be changing. Whether or not you want to buy any particular issue of the magazine is going to change as well, because if you are not interested in the vampire armies, the vampire magazine is not going to be any use to you. If you're not interested in the Stormcast armies, the Stormcast armies magazine is not going to be any use to you. Yes, you can resell it, but I'd imagine the resale prices on these particular models will tank pretty quickly, as they are available on the cheap. So if you want to collect the magazine, it's worth it. If you want to collect the models, it's very much a personal matter. And one of the reasons I'm doing these videos is it allows me to get good value out of the magazine. It allows me to speak to people, not directly but indirectly, be part of the community. And my son's getting into it with me, so for me this is definitely worth it, and would probably be worth it if the models were not saving me money. Where it is saving me money, it's going to give me a bunch of armies, and I may well get rid of, either through selling or maybe even giving them away as prizes later on in the series, the armies and models that I just don't want. The reason I'm not doing anything like that now, I'm making decisions and giving away stuff like I used to do in previous episodes, is because while I'm doing it with my son, he's going to want to try out all these models, and he's going to try out all these armies, so I won't know what he wants to keep until after I'm done with them. But once we've made decisions, chances are I'll be chucking Spearheads I don't want out as prizes periodically. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you found it useful. And I will see you guys next week for issue 4. Bye-bye.